Here with our revamped and revitalized look in how to play each of the elements in Empires of Aether, this video is going to pertain to the Poison Nation, the nuisance of the board, with most of your abilities actually debilitating your opponents as opposed to bolstering your own position. A very unique way of playing built to sabotage. As opposed to elevate your own position, you are going to weaken your opponents. The Poison Nation thrives on unit-heavy matchups. If your opponent, if their element is engineered to just spam a bunch of soldiers on the board, you are just the guy to disrupt that strategy. Let's take a look at their abilities and how they attack the board. Taking a look at Poison's abilities, Poison is super unique. It actually just received a couple of consecutive nerfs because it is so good at doing what it's meant to do, and that is meant to disrupt your opponents. Most of their abilities are built to sabotage your opponents as opposed to boosting your own position. A very unique aspect of this element. And if we take a look at their large cards, Poison thrives off of having swamps. Swamps are going to give them extra food. However, you can't put a resource building on them for food. But swamps, which only cost 3 BM a turn, are going to give them 2 food and 1 building material each turn. So if you were to spring for a resource building on them, not that I recommend that, it'd be having rainforest level productions on a very, very weak tile. But that being said, Poison doesn't need their tile of choice to be very successful because all of their abilities are built on a pretty poor economy, so you're not going to be a strong economy. You're not going for these 50-50 wins typically, but your abilities don't need that, and so that's what we're looking at here. Our Tier 1 and Tier 2 points here is our general can place 2 free barracks once we hit Tier 2, and this is very important for our signature ability that eventually leads into our potentially most powerful Tier 3 ability. Additionally, what helps us bridge the gap on a terrible economy is once we hit Tier 2, we can sell an advantage card per turn to get either 5 food or 5 BM. You can't mix and match, unfortunately, but it does help you there. We're making typically more food than building materials, so usually you're going to sell it for building materials to help you potentially get to Tier 3. But if you need some extra food in order to take on some bosses, because our swamp tiles also give us +1 to our soldiers' dice roll when they are attacking. And additionally, when we're fighting our opponents, they can only use 1 advantage card against you per battle, so they have to pick and choose, and you really don't want to be on the receiving end of Poison's focus. Let's take a look at their Tier 1s, and I didn't organize them like we typically have with these other elements because it's really interesting to see that people value and prioritize different abilities for different positions, but also shows you what kind of player you're going to be with Poison. One that you're always going to take, though, with Poison is Watch Your Step, just the free swamp tile. Even though we don't need any swamp tiles to spawn in our corner, having this extra dice roll is going to just certainly help us in the end. Can't argue with that. And of course, it's going to net more resources than every tile in the game, aside from Rainforest for Poison. Really, really solid here. And then the only one in this Tier 1 that's really going to kind of not meet our needs at this current time, Dipped in Venom. It is a casualty-based system. It just doesn't work as well as these other ones. The fan favorite, Man-Made Plague. Plague is a weather event that has every player at the table roll a dice and lose that many soldiers. However, Man-Made Plague, by discarding 2 advantage cards, so this is the one nation that doesn't mind getting poor advantage cards in the beginning of the game. For discarding 2 advantage cards, you force Plague to be the next weather event and you are immune to it. Additionally, every other player at the table is going to receive double its effects. If your opponent rolls a 6, they have to remove 12 soldiers from the board. Of course, if they roll a 1 that's really poor, they're only going to lose 2 soldiers. But still, this can help some early aggression or to potentially fend off an opponent that is showing or looking at you the wrong way, that sort of deal. But our other 2 are great. If we're in a lower turn position, turn 10-10 or 13-13, then getting a free swamp tile and getting a free barracks on it is really, really solid for that early priority. But handle with gloves. If I'm starting 16 or 16 or 20-20, then this is what I'm taking every single time. This is going to really stunt a lot of strategies that are coming your way. You've got a lot of elements that thrive off very specific advantage cards, or you got the likes of Nature that gets a lot of advantage cards. Lightning draws their pick of the litter within a few turns. And so you're forcing them to get rid of that sort of thing. This is going to be really good against the Sand Nation as well. Really solid. So if you've got one opponent that you're really just trying to take down, you're going full force, you want to kill them, you can force them to discard all of their advantage cards, Or you can force every other element at the table to discard 2 advantage cards. Very, very powerful, and there's no cost associated with this. So this is your standard tier 1. Poison is about to get a new line of abilities, so perhaps this changes in the near future. They're getting a new line of abilities because, we're trying to get some varying strategies for every element, of course. And then we get to tier 2, where we do see a lot of variance here, and this does play into what your late game strategy is going to be. But the tier 2 that you're never not going to take is Multiplying Like Rats. And this is one of the cards that did receive a nerf pretty recently. Once per turn, you may purchase an army from a barracks on the tile your general is on for just 5 food. That is 1 food per soldier in an army. It used to have no limit on how many armies you could purchase with this criteria. And so therefore your general was just zigging and zagging back and forth between tiles. And remember your passive, you can get 2 barracks on 1 tile. You could get 3 armies for 15 food every turn. So Poison was farming up a lot of soldiers and then, of course, zerging down their opponents with their tier 1 abilities, just suppressing them. And so this is their situation right now. It's still very strong. It's just it's going to take you a couple of extra turns to put the same kind of suffocation on your opponent. So you do have to play a little more tactically. It's not as boring as it was. And so then it's, what are we going to do? Are we going to be more scrappy with our opponent? Are we going to take Contagion? Because Contagion is a way to chip away at your opponent, where even if you're not battling them, you're still hurting their soldiers. At the end of each turn, eliminate up to 3 enemy soldiers on a tile adjacent to your general. Your opponent has put up a defense, and maybe they don't have the best food economy to back it up, and they can't just put armies out every single turn, and so you chipping away at them, weakening them, and then you strike at them with no potential for them to actually defend it is really, really solid. I love this in lightning or fire matchups, that sort of thing. And what is going to finish off the job here? Well, we've got Overcultivated. Overcultivated is going to hurt your enemy's economy, but its secondary objective is to eliminate really, really powerful defensive fortifications that stand in your way. If you've got the Summon Citadel ability in front of you from the Earth Nation, or you've got some Metallurgical Men or Fortifying Blood Nation's got really, really strong defense fortifications, we can get rid of these. But most importantly, we want to probably try to use this on a critical tile for an element. Fields for air, volcanoes for fire, specifically the one that they use secondary succession on, or blizzards, for example. This is going to get rid of that sort of thing and allow you to go at these elements that thrive off having one specific tile. So I would say this is your most aggressive tier 2, but we've got a couple other options as well. And I see these more as a late game strategy. I love these abilities. I think they are so great, and we haven't even shown you why they're so great. But tier 2 is going to give you a second use of Man-Made Plague, a second way to just inflict casualties on your opponent. But also, this is going to allow the plague to count for your quest. Well, what is the quest of the Poison Nation? Well, I do think it is one of their central late game strategies. Eliminate 30 soldiers in battle or with abilities. And this does not typically include plague, so you can't just wait to use it till the end game. However, if you have your monuments on the board, it will count. And if your opponents are rolling high, you could satisfy almost your entire quest with 1 plague ability. But what is going to help you bridge the gap without even fighting your opponent directly? Social distancing. Your opponent has clustered a lot of soldiers on 1 tile, maybe to prepare for taking a boss or to defend against an attack, or maybe to attack themselves. And you can eliminate that many soldiers on your own tile to eliminate that many soldiers on an enemy-owned tile anywhere on the board. And those will all count for your quest. So even though this is a tier 2 ability, I see this only being used as a tier 3 position in order to help us get to our quest, and I really, really like in that position. So what are our other tier 3s that are going to help us accomplish that quest? Well, you could get the original Multiplying Like Rats, which, hard to argue with, right? Really good to get 10 armies with, or finish off bosses with poison. That was the old poison strat. If you're really prioritizing your quest, though, then I would go ahead and move away from that and go with our other sabotaging cards. We've got Toxic in Every Regard, which is just pick someone and really just bully every aspect of their game. Eliminate an army, destroy 3 resource buildings, and remove up to 10 of each resource. That's 20 total resources from them if they've got it. You're not stealing them, you're just taking them away, but that it can be super disruptive. And then on top of that, you've got Parasite. When your general is involved in a victorious battle against an opponent, take a random advantage card and either 5 food or 5 BM from them. You don't have a good economy, but you're stealing resources from your opponents consistently, and you're taking their random advantage cards. So really, really powerful stuff. Super sabotagey. If you are the mean guy at the table and you like looking at people suffer, well then the Poison Nation is the one for you. Have fun.